All right, everybody, I've got my show notes. I've got a second cup of coffee. Episode 3 of Season 2 of Rings of Power. It's another banger. I gotta say, I have not been disappointed by any of the episodes so far in the second season. Unlike the first season, where I was kind of like, at a lot of things. There are some things in this episode that make me go, ugh, but not nearly as much as season 1, comparatively speaking. This was another good episode. It's the least of the three that launched with the premiere, but it does bring Numenor back into the fold, which completes the story arc of all the characters we saw from season 1. So that's cool. Um, Spoiler alert, if you haven't already watched the episode, pause here, go away, watch it, come back. I don't do spoiler free. So you've had your warning. I'm going to take a sip of coffee to give you a chance. Don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the bell icons. Never miss an update. Daily streams here and on Twitch. All right, so this is a Numenor-centric episode. And honestly, I understand why we need Numenor because of how it ties into the greater storyline. But I've read the books, I've read the Silmarillion. To viewers who have never before um, interacted with the Silmarillion and never read the appendices of the Lord of the Rings books, none of Numenor is going to make sense, and it honestly doesn't feel like it matters that much. Because the grand scope of this is the forging of the rings, right? So we've got the 3 rings for Elvenkind, the 7 for the Dwarf Lords, and the 9 for the mortal men doomed to die who become the Nazgul. Now, that's really all, if you've only ever seen the Peter Jackson films, that's really all you need to know. And so the Numenor plot is kind of, it doesn't really need to exist in that in the scope of that conversation. But in the scope of the greater lore of Middle Earth, it is important. And this is where I will say that even though they've, taken some liberties with the lore, I do appreciate that they are crafting a unique storyline with Numenor that sort of follows in line with the events. There are certain things we know that happen. If you've read the books, Pharazôn as an example. How exactly that happens, well, that's fill in the blanks. And that's what they've done here is they've filled in the blanks with a rebellious younger sister of Isildur who basically betrays her kingdom, betrays her queen, betrays her father, and allies with and kind of pushes in a way Pharazôn because she's also done some naughty things with the Palantir. We'll get to that though. That's more towards the end of the episode. We start off with um, Elendil leaving his son behind and wanting to take the horse with them, and the horse doesn't want to go. And then we get this long sequence, which is an homage to the horse sequence in, I think it's the Two Towers, when Aragorn goes off the cliff, and was it Bragor comes and finds him, and that's a very heartwarming scene in the films, and definitely play that back here with this horse, Belloc, I think is its name, going off to find Isildur, who's inside of a spider lair, and my oh my, are the spiders terrifying. They are not Shelob size terrifying, but they're smaller versions of Shelob, and Shelob herself was the daughter of Ungoliant. There's just, if I remember the name of the Ungolia. I always forget the name of the spider that was Shelob's mom. Anyway, these are like, if I had to guess, these are meant to be like, um, like probably children of Shelob. The spiders are terrifying, and the horse finds Isildur. He gets out. Um, and then we're back in Numenor, and it's the death of the king. And we've got Pharazôn at the pub in the seedy part of town, meeting up with Isildur's daughter and other people. I think one is the son of the king, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember exactly who all these random people are. But basically, they're egging him on, and he's still loyal to the queen, even though he's starting to, you know, he wants to take over, but he is loyal to her, and he doesn't want to upset that balance too much. Um, but then, of course, the sister reveals the Palantir and how the royal line, even though they claimed otherwise, um, we're using the Palantir because she discovered it at the dying words of the king. So that plays into things here. Then we're back to Mordor. We get a cave troll, or a hill troll, excuse me. And then we're all about building rings for the dwarves. And we get, I have my notes, bearded dwarven women. I remember why I made this note. So we're back to Celebrimbor and Anatar in Eregion. And Prince Durin has arrived with his beardless dwarven wife. Her sideburns don't count. I'm sorry, everybody. Like the books say. I'm just pointing out what the books say, that dwarven women are. It's impossible to distinguish them from dwarven men because of their beards and stature and appearance. I'm just saying that's what the books say. So, you know. um, Disa proceeds to prompt her husband, "Hey, um, you need to take this back to the king, regardless of your pride, because this is a chance to save, the dwarven people. So no matter what the cost here, we need to, because there's only 3 months of food in the storage." Um, we then get a very powerful sequence, and again, I feel like the most powerful sequences of this season are going to be revolving around Celebrimbor and Anatar, because this is really about the fall of Celebrimbor and the seduction of, Sauron seducing him to build these rings and to learn more about ringcraft and everything else to get towards forging the One Ring in secret. And the the previews I've seen in the trailers where eventually Celebrimbor is going to descend into madness, and then realize what he's done, and then war comes to Middle Earth. There's this sequence where Anatar, Sauron is like provoking Celebrimbor with like, "Oh, but the High King said you weren't supposed to build any more rings," and Celebrimbor gets pissed and he's like, "No, I am at the height of my craft. How dare he tell me how to rule in my kingdom?" He is totally fallen, by the way, hook, line, and sinker, like I said in the last episode. And he goes off and he's like, "I'm going to write a letter to the king and I'm going to tell him that I've closed the forges down because the rings work so brilliantly well that I don't need to work anymore." And Sauron looks at him and he's like, "You would lie to your high king." And Celebrimbor gives this speech about, ego, essentially. "I am the greatest. I'm at the height of my craft. I am not going to let this go to waste." And Sauron is like surprised, like genuinely surprised that Celebrimbor has gone all in, but then ultimately comes back around and like looks over him as he's writing the letter, and it's very much the Dark Lord with his apprentice. Very cool imagery here, and like I said, I think the strongest scenes of the season so far have been the Celebrimbor and Anatar scenes. Um, I need to know the actor. I don't really know who he is. The actor who's playing Celebrimbor. I've never seen him in anything ever before. He is killing it as this character, and I need to go see more things with him in it now because he is a great actor. Back with Isildur, we get a glimpse of the dead marshes. He comes upon a camp where he meets a girl named Astrid, who is of the people there, the local tribes, and they basically are on their way back to Peligrar. I always forget the name of it. To see if they can find where the Númenóreans went. They get attacked by bandits. Here comes Elf Cop, who I'm going to continually make fun of, but he's here. He rescues them. They go off to the remnants, um, and we see the rest of the humans. And Theon's here, and they're doing a burial sequence for his mom who died at the end of the last season. They get a scene, Prince Durin going to his father, talking about the rings. And there's a forgiveness sequence here, which, it is what it is. But the one thing we get here with the humans is Theon is pissed at Elf Cop, whose name I can't even remember. That's how inconsequential he was to season one, in my opinion. Him and Bronwyn. I actually remember the healer's names. I think it was Bronwyn. But Elf Cop, I can't remember his name. So this is one of those areas where even though I really enjoy the episodes, there are little things that I'm like, meh, and I'll remember his name at some point. Theon wants nothing to do with him because he's like, you got my mother killed. You're not my father. Um, then we get this sequence where Isildur is going to go off to rescue his horse, and Astrid's left alone, and we see her heating up a knife in the fire, and she reaches behind her, and she's got a brand of Adar on her back, like she's. So now the question, and she goes to burn it off, right? The question is she a spy, or is she just a legitimate slave who escaped? Because she totally spun this story to Isildur. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand about how, my betrothed and I'm looking for him and all this other stuff. But yeah, it's a little sus now. I'm just sorry. It's an attractive, dark-haired beauty um, with a sexy accent, and she's just here as a girlfriend prop because there's like the back of my mind, I'm like Isildur meeting up with a local, wanting to marry her. Well, that could be fun. And then you see the brand, and it's like, oh, really? It's a spy? Okay. Either way, we're dealing with tropes. I don't know which trope we're going with yet, but that's what it is. The coronation sequence. Before I go to the coronation sequence, the end sequence of the show, this episode is King Durin arriving with Mithril and giving it to Celebrimbor to forge rings for the dwarves. So we know that that's happening now. But the reason I want to get that out of the way and then come back to the coronation sequence, because I do feel the coronation sequence is pretty important in the scope of what they're doing with finally setting Farazone up. Because essentially, a lot of people are upset with the queen. She let a lot of people off. They died. She came back. She's blinded. She's disabled, essentially. If that's the terminology we're allowed to use these days, I don't really know. Handicapped, disabled, I really don't know. Apologies. Um, no one wants to treat with her, and they don't want her as a queen anymore. Many people don't. And when she goes into the chamber one night to talk to the Palantir, right, it's gone, and you realize that, oh no, Isildur's sister, whose name I can't remember, stole the Palantir, and that's part of her plan with Farazone and the other conspirators. And so when the coronation sequence happens, there's this discussion beforehand of Farazone when he's helping the queen choose her dress, and they're talking about how an eagle descended upon the coronation of her father, and it would be an auspicious day if an eagle appeared. This is important because this is what the people perceive as the direct, it's the will of the gods, how you see it. And in the course of this coronation sequence, she's blind. The people are shouting at her. Not everyone wants her to be queen. And in the middle of all this, here comes Isildur's sister, Elendil's daughter, and she's got the Palantir in her hands, and she accuses the queen in front of everybody of being allied with the elves. And of course, this is a big no-no at this point in the history of Numenor, because the sect that, especially with what happened to her father, the way they've set the storyline up in the show is based on some aspects of what really went down in Numenor with basically anti-elf sentiment, causing soiled relationships and um, accusing the queen in front of everybody, and Farazone very slyly is like, throw it away, destroy it. Of course our queen wouldn't rely upon elven magics. She doesn't need them. And then Muriel, I think is her name, is like, no, wait, we need the elf stone. It's going to, we need the Palantir. It will protect us. It'll help us. And this causes an all-out mutinous riot of it's just of epic proportions in the throne room during the coronation. She gets dragged off, and as this is happening, the eagle lands right behind Farazone, and Farazone turns around, and the people start chanting his name. The eagle has landed. The eagle. It's an auspicious. It's Farazone, Farazone, Farazone. So this is important because I don't know if they're going to do it. I think it'll have to be next season because we're already 3 episodes deep and we've seen a lot of war in the previews for this show. So if I had to guess, this season is going to be all about the forging of the rings, the war, and ultimately the capture of Sauron to bring him back to Numenor, all of which happens underneath Pharazôn. And season 3 is going to be the fall of Numenor. If I had to guess, season 3 will be the fall of Numenor when Sauron is a prisoner and manages to corrupt Pharazôn and all the Numenorians who are allied with him to we must go attack Valinor, we must attack the Valar. There's a whole bunch of stuff that it's got to be season 3. Um, which is going to be really interesting to see. And then season 4 would have to be, I'm getting ahead of myself now, but season 4 would have to be the Forging of the Kingdoms with Isildur and Anarion. Um, season 5 would be, I don't know, we'll wait and see. I think they said 5 seasons is what they planned, if I remember correctly. This was a good episode. The weakest of the 3 that launched, but still a good episode overall. However, I'm not going to lie, I did fast forward through a couple of sequences here, like the slog through the swamp. I'm just like, okay, I don't need to see 2 minutes of him riding through the swamp on his horse. Like, there was a little slog in this episode, but overall, still a good one. Moved the storyline in important ways, and we now have the full arc of characters back in the fold from season 1. So, looking forward to where this goes from here. Stay tuned. I'll have more reviews up as the episodes come out. We're going to be doing discussion series around the Rings of Power, and I will be doing some stuff after Chris gets a chance to watch things. We'll be talking about her perspective as someone who's never read the books and just loves the films and loved the first season. And I'm going to get her thoughts on things too. So stay tuned. Don't forget daily streams here and on Twitch. Like, sub, bell, all those things. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and happy viewing.